Alright, so the north node is the ascending intersection of the moon's path, right? The point where the moon crosses the ecliptic moving northward. In Hindu Vedic astrology, it is Rahu, one of the shadow planets, Shayagraha, mythologized as a severed head of the demon Svarvanu, who drank the Amrita, nectar of immortality, and was beheaded by Vishnu's Diskaras before the nectar could reach his body. This decapitated head periodically swallows the sun and moon, causing eclipses. In Western astrology, the North Node represents the soul's evolutionary trajectory, the direction of growth, challenge, and unfamiliar territory that must be developed in this lifetime. As experience is uncomfortable, effortful, and magnetically attractive, we are drawn towards its sign and house themes even as we feel ill-equipped for them. The North Node's sign, house, and aspects describe the new muscles the soul is developing, the type of experience that, though awkward at first, generates the deepest fulfillment. Planets conjunct the North Node receive an intensification of destiny. So we see the movement. It's mean node, perfectly retrograde, 3 degrees day. True node oscillates retrograde and direct. The North Node cycle is 18.6 years through all 12 signs with 1.5 years per sign. And the Vedic name Rahu, the dragon's head, the sign is the head without body. Alright? And we associate eclipse, ambition, obsession, future pulse, soul's growth edge, worldly hunger. So the symbol here is an upward horseshoe. What do we see for Ketu, the south node, the dragon's tail? Well, the south node is a descending intersection where the moon crosses the ecliptic moving southward. In Hindu tradition, it is Ketu, the headless body of Svarbhanu, associated with spiritual liberation, past life wisdom, the dissolution of worldly attachment. Ketu is the moksha karaka, the significator of spiritual release, for it holds all the accumulated wisdom of past lives, but none of the ego's hunger for more experience. In Western astrology, the south node represents the soul's default comfort zone, accumulated skills, tendencies, attitudes, and patterns carried from previous incarnations, or in psychological terms from the first half of childhood. The south node's sign and house describe what comes easily and naturally, often dangerously so, for its gifts seduce the soul into repetition rather than evolution. Planets conjunct the south node are deeply embedded in the psyche and carry an overwhelming force of familiar karmic pull. Spiritual task is to harvest the south node's gifts while releasing its compulsive patterns in service of the north node's evolutionary direction. So the nodal axis always opposes. If the north node occupies Taurus in the second house, the south node sits in Scorpio in the 8th. Their interpretation is always in relation to each other. The integration of the opposition is a karmic lesson. So the movement is always exactly opposite the north node. Vedic name Ketu, the dragon's tail, sign, body without a head. Association is eclipse, past life, gifts, habitual patterns, spiritual gifts, release, and moksha. And the symbol is a downward horseshoe. Now we look at a true node versus our mean node. Two mathematical calculations of the nodes exist. The mean node is a smooth, retrograde-only average position, while the true node accounts for the moon's wobble and oscillates slightly forward and back. Modern computer-generated charts typically default to the true node. Traditional and Vedic astrologers may prefer the mean. The difference is rarely more than 1.5 degrees and does not significantly alter interpretation in most cases. So, moving on to the nodal return and the metonic cycle. So the nodal return, when the transiting north node returns to its natal position, occurs approximately every 18.6 years. These moments from ages 18.6, 37.2, 55.8, 74.4 are widely recognized as life-altering, bringing themes of destiny, karmic review, and soul course corrections. The half return at 9.3, 28, 46.5, and 65 years places the transiting north node over the natal south node, bringing existential reckonings, crisis points, and opportunities to consciously release outdated patterns. The nodal return and the Saturn return, 29.5 years together, mark the most potent rites of passage in Western astrology. Let's talk about lore of the principal asteroid. Beginning with the discovery of Ceres in 1801, astronomers found a population of small bodies between Mars and Jupiter and beyond the outer planets. Astrologers since the 1970s have incorporated these bodies, particularly the 4 major asteroids, being Ceres, Pallas, Juno, and Vesta, as well as Chiron, into natal interpretation. Their mythology expands the feminine archetype, in particular restoring to astrology the full richness of the goddesses who were subsumed under the masculine planetary canon. The following are the most widely used. We're going to take a look at Chiron to start out with. Chiron is known as the Wounded Healer, Centaur, Maverick, Saturn-Uranus Bridge, 50.7-year cycle. So discovered in 1977, orbiting between Saturn and Uranus, Chiron is classified as a Centaur object, a transitional body bridging the classical and transpersonal realms. Its discovery coincided with the rise of holistic medicine, depth psychotherapy, and the shamanic healing renaissance. Chiron corresponds to the centaur Chiron of Greek mythology, not the reckless centaur of the battlefield, but the singular civilized exception, the immortal healer, astronomer, and teacher who tutored Achilles, Asclepius, Jason, and Hercules. Ironically, this greatest of healers was struck by one of Hercules' poisoned arrows and suffered an incurable wound in his thigh, creating the central paradox, which is the healer who cannot heal himself, unable to die, being immortal yet unable to be cured. Chiron eventually surrendered his immortality to release Prometheus from his chains and was placed among the stars. In the natal chart, Chiron's placement describes the location of one's primal wound, a place of deep sensitivity and apparent inadequacy that no external achievement can fully resolve. The wound is personal yet transpersonal. The healing of it serves others. Chiron placements identify one's greatest area of pain and paradoxically one's most potent gifts for serving others in the same domain. The archetype of the wounded healer, the therapist whose childhood abuse equips them to reach wounded children, the astrologer whose years of inner confusion gift them with precise empathy for those lost in complexity. And we see its orbital period is 50.7 years, highly elliptical, 14 years in Aries, 8 in Pisces. Discovered in November 1st, 1977, Charles T. Cowell, Palomar Observatory. Body symbol, a key-like glyph representing the key to healing. Its mythology is Chiron the centaur, teacher, healer, astronomer, the immortal who chose mortality. Themes are the core wound, healing gifts, marginality, apprenticeship, the maverick bridge builder, and our keywords are wound, healing, teaching, liminality, shamanic initiation, the healer healed by their pain. We talk about Ceres, the great mother, a dwarf planet, earth, water, feminine. Ceres was the first asteroid discovered January 1st, 1801, and was reclassified as a dwarf planet in 2006, the largest body in the asteroid belt and now kin to Pluto in official taxonomy. Her rediscovery corresponds to her mythological stature. She is one of the most powerful goddesses of antiquity. Ceres corresponds to Demeter, goddess of grain, agriculture, the harvest, and the sacred bond between mother and child. The foundational myth of Persephone, Ceres' daughter, is abducted by Pluto and taken to the underworld. Ceres, devastated with grief, neglects the earth. Crops wither, animals die, humanity faces extinction, until Zeus negotiates Persephone's partial return. The myth encodes the agricultural cycle: planting, winter follow, spring return, the anguish of separation, and the ecstasy of reunion, and the archetype of unconditional nurturing love. In astrology, Ceres governs nourishment in all its forms: physical food and feeding, emotional sustenance, the parenting archetype regardless of gender, and the processes of grief. Ceres placements and aspects reveal how one gives and receives care, one's relationship to food and the body, experiences of separation, and the capacity to tend growing things. She also governs seasons of grief and the wisdom born of loss. The underworld journey that Demeter's myth insists is necessary for the renewal of life. We see Ceres classification as a dwarf planet, largest body in the main asteroid belt, discovered January 1st, 1801. Symbol, sickle of Demeter. Mythology, Demeter Ceres, goddess of grain, harvest, and the grief of separation. Themes, nurture, nourishment, grief, mother-child bond, seasons of loss and renewal. Keywords, nourishment, feeding, grief, harvest, parenting, separation, anxiety, body wisdom. Pallas Athene, the warrior wisdom, asteroid, air, fire, androgynous. So Pallas Athene, the second largest body in the asteroid belt, was discovered in 1802. In Greek mythology, she is Athena, the gray-eyed goddess born fully armored from the forehead of Zeus. Intelligence crystallized, wisdom without the vulnerability of childhood or the emotional entanglement of Venus. She is the patron of Athens, the strategist of Odysseus, the defender of Perseus, the weaver of Penelope's art. In astrology, Pallas governs creative intelligence, strategic thinking, pattern recognition, political acumen, artistic craft, capacity to hold competing complexities within a unified vision. She's a planet of the master chess player, the lawyer who constructs airtight arguments, the artist who plans a work of extraordinary technical precision. Pallas also carries the archetype of the armored feminine, the woman who enters masculine domains with full competence but may sacrifice the softness of relational vulnerability to do so. Her placements reveal where creative intelligence is most potent, and where the challenge of integrating intellect with feeling is most alive. So it's discovered March 28, 1802. Symbols: a spear and a diamond. Mythologies: Pallas Athene, goddess of wisdom, strategy, craft, and civilized warfare. Themes: creative intelligence, strategy, pattern recognition, the armored feminine, artistic craft. Keywords: wisdom, strategy, art, political intelligence, craftsmanship, legal mind, pattern. Okay. Now we look at Juno, the goddess of the sacred bond, asteroid, air, water, and feminine. So Juno, discovered in 1804, corresponds to Hera, queen of Olympus and wife of Zeus, goddess of marriage, committed partnership, and divine contract. Her myth is largely one of betrayal and rage. Zeus's serial infidelities with mortals and nymphs are the ongoing wound of Hera's marriage, and her responses alternate between vengeful persecution of his lovers and dignified long-suffering loyalty. This myth encodes a profound truth about committed partnership, the crucible of jealousy, betrayal, and power struggle that is also the forge of genuine intimacy. In astrology, Juno governs the quality and dynamics of committed relationship, not the initial flush of romance, that is Venus, nor the raw magnetic pull of sexual obsession, which is Pluto, but the architecture of partnership over time, compatibility, fairness, power struggles, the experience of inequality, and the search for a truly equal consort. Juno's placement by sign and house describes what one needs in a committed partner, the kind of relationships one attracts, and the specific wounds around commitment, betrayal, and belonging. Her aspects reveal patterns of jealousy, disempowerment in relationship, and the pathway to genuine partnership. So for Juno, it was discovered September 1st, 1804. Symbols: a staff of Hera topped with a star. Mythology: Hera Juno, queen of Olympus, goddess of marriage and legitimate union. Themes: committed partnership, marriage, equality, inequality, betrayal, jealousy, contract. Keywords are partnership, commitment, covenant, power dynamics in relationship, jealousy, and belonging. Vesta, the sacred flame. Asteroid, fire, virgin, whole unto herself. Vesta, discovered in 1807, and the brightest asteroid, occasionally visible to the naked eye, corresponds to Hestia in Greek mythology, the firstborn of the Olympians, who was also the last, as Cronos swallowed and later regurgitated his children. Hestia is the goddess of the hearth, the sacred flame at the center of both family, home, and civic life. Every Greek meal began and ended with libations to Hestia. She never married, never went to war, never participated in Olympian drama. She kept the fire. The Roman Vestal virgins tended a sacred flame in her honor that could never go out. If it did, Rome's divine protection was extinguished. In astrology, Vesta governs focus, devotion, sacred service, and the flame of consciousness within. She is not a sexual planet, but one of sexuality's purification, the energy of Eros turned toward a higher altar. Vesta's placement reveals where one is called to intense, undistracted devotion, the nature of one's inner sanctuary, and the spiritual dimensions of sexuality. Vesta also indicates areas of life that require periodic withdrawal from relationship to tend the inner flame, and warns against the shadow of alienation, born of excessive self-containment. In mundane astrology, she's associated with hearth and home, but also with the social agreements, fire management, civic ceremony that binds communities. Discovered March 29th, 1807, symbols: a sacred flame in an altar vessel. Mythology: Hestia Vesta, goddess of the eternal hearth, sacred flame and devotion. Themes of sacred focus, devotion, inner flame, sexuality, a sacred energy, ritual, and service. Keywords: focus, devotion, sacred service, purity, inner flame, spiritual sexuality, and withdrawal. We talk about Eris, the revealer of discord, dwarf planet, fierce feminine, 557-year cycle. So Eris was discovered in 2005 and initially thought to be larger than Pluto, was the direct catalyst for Pluto's reclassification as a dwarf planet in 2006, an appropriately disruptive act for a body named after the Greek goddess of discord. In myth, Eris hurled a golden apple inscribed for the Pharos into the wedding of Peleus and Thetis, knowing she had not been invited. Competition among Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite that followed triggered the Trojan War, arguably the most catastrophic conflict in Greek mythology, set in motion by the excluded feminine. In astrology, Eris governs the revelation of hidden truth through discord, the eruption of the excluded voice into institutional settings, radical honesty that ruptures false consensus, the fierce warrior energy of the feminine that refuses to be silenced or overlooked. Her extraordinary orbital period of 557 years means she moves through signs over the span of human generations. Her transit through Aries from 1922 to 2044 has coincided with the entire modern era of feminist awakening, world wars, decolonization, and the radical disruption of established world order. Eris in the natal chart, particularly prominent through conjunction with personal planets or angles, describes the soul with a ferocious calling to speak uncomfortable truths and catalyze necessary change. It's classified as a dwarf planet, scattered disk object beyond Neptune, discovered January 5th, 2005, orbital period of 557 years, the longest of any named dwarf planet. Mythology, Eris, Greek goddess of discord and strife, rival of Ares' war sister Enyo. Themes, discord as revelation, excluded voice, radical truth-telling, fierce feminine. Keywords are discord, revelation, strife, truth force, the uninvited, the disruptor, and warrior feminine. Now we're going to talk about Sedna, the keeper of the deep. Trans-Neptunian object, water, 11,400 year cycle. Sedna, discovered in 2003, orbits at the extreme outer reaches of the solar system, so distant that its year lasts approximately 11,400 Earth years, will not return to the inner solar system for millennia. In Inuit mythology, Sedna is the goddess of the Arctic Ocean, the sea, and the sea creatures. The myth varies by tradition. She was cast from a boat by her father or husband, her fingers cut from the gunwale as she tried to climb back in, and those severed fingers became the sails, walruses, and whales that populate the Arctic seas. Sedna sank to the ocean floor and became its sovereign. In astrology, Sedna, still being integrated, is associated with collective sacrifice, ecological consciousness, the sacred wounds of betrayal by those we trust, capacity for spiritual sovereignty born from descending into the deepest layers of experience. At a collective level here, Sedna's cycle overlaps with the deepest cycles of civilizational transformation. Her current position in Taurus connects her themes of sacrifice and ocean to the material body of the earth itself. Many astrologers associate her with climate crises, the rise of the natural world, and the civilizational reckoning with what has been discarded or sacrificed in the name of progress. Classified trans-Neptunian object, extreme dwarf planet candidate, discovered November 14, 2003. Orbital period is 11,400 years. Mythology is Sedna, Inuit goddess of the Arctic Sea, sovereign of ocean creatures. Themes sacrifice, ecological consciousness, civilizational wounds, oceanic depth, betrayal by kin. Keywords here are sacrifice, deep sovereignty, ecological awareness, betrayal, the primal wound of civilization. Now for our closing note. The celestial bodies cataloged in this memorandum are not inert rocks and gaseous spheres obeying the indifferent laws of gravity. They are, in the astrological vision, ensouled intelligences, archetypes living simultaneously in the sky and in the deepest structures of the human psyche. To study them is to encounter the great metaphors by which the cosmos speaks its interior life into the life of the individual. The planets are the actors, the signs are the costumes they wear, the houses are the stages on which they perform, and the aspects are the dynamic conversations between them. Fixed stars add the voice of the immeasurable deep, the stellar scapes of myth that precede all written tradition. The nodes carry the thread of karmic time. The asteroids restore the feminine divine to her full complexity. Together they form a language, the oldest language humanity has spoken, by which the cosmos converses with the soul. To read a birth chart is not to determine fate, but to encounter the symbolic atlas of a life, held within the light of a single moment when a particular being entered the theater of time. Issued by the Astral Archive, subspecie Aeternitas. Thank you for watching these videos. With peace and love, I appreciate every single one of you. Piscean out. I'll see you in the next one.